This episode of the Off-Road Podcast is sponsored by Warren, Power Tank, and Medical Gear Outfitters.
Off-Road Podcast, episode 307, Solar Power on the and the Trail, Part 2.
Tonight, Aaron spends more money, Jeremy gets an unexpected surprise, and Ben gets no surprises at all.
Welcome to the Off-Road Podcast about everything off-road. We cover news, review products, and interview people in the off-road industry. I'm your host, Ben, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Aaron and Jeremy. And welcome to the show.
The weekend review is brought to you by Medical Gear Outfitters. What are you waiting for? Are you waiting to have a casualty on the trail? Check out medicalgearoutfitters.com to get straightened out. Medical Gear Outfitters has everything you need, whether you're going out for the day or traveling on a year-long expedition. Head over there to get off-road specific kits that meet all of your needs. And while you're there, make sure you use Off-Road Podcast for 10% off.
I don't know who out there needs to hear this, but I'm going to let you hear it right now. Tampons do not belong in a first aid kit unless they're for feminine hygiene, period.
Pun intended.
Yeah, pun intended. There you go. Yeah. I really needed to get that off my chest. I heard that, what was that, last weekend? Yeah, last weekend.
All the time.
And it was someone who had medical experience in the military many years ago, and it thankfully 3 different people in the group spoke up and said, actually, and
Is
corrected
that like
the person.
It
has to be, man.
It's like someone said it once, and it became like the Lord's word. And it's like, I don't know, was it on like, what was that, Doomsday Preppers or something? And so everyone's like, oh, yep, that's what it is. He's an expert.
Oh, I was thinking it was probably on something like Vice or whatever, those Facebook pages, Vice, and it was like top 10 camping hacks or something like that.
Well, I have seen stuff like that where people are like, oh, no, that definitely belongs in your first aid kit and to stop bleeding. And it's like monthly bleeding maybe, and that's about it.
I guess to add on to that, we are also talking about IFACs, and someone mentioned putting Band-Aids in their IFACs, and I kind of got a little overzealous with the correction on that one.
You know, I think it comes down to training, and a lot of those guys that they have the first aid kits, they don't. They do it the same with their guns, and maybe they're off roading and whatever. They don't train too.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It's like,
Yep.
hey, I've got this, but I don't train, and they're the types that go off road not prepared to stay overnight.
Yeah, Eric, that would make a great horror movie. It could be titled Camping Hacks. Well, no, I'm Wellen first. Well, Jeremy, how's your Jeep driving?
It's not driving. So I know you asked me on the show last week if I would be upset if I didn't get it finished last weekend like I had hoped, and I said, probably not, because I've been delayed so many times.
That was Andy that asked you that question.
Oh, was it Andy? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Correction. Andy asked me that question. Well, it didn't happen. So I ended up getting the new steering box and RAM on Wednesday. I installed the new steering box, and I just cannot fit the lines to the RAM currently. So I had to order some 45-degree fittings, and that should fix my issue. So one of the lines was completely contacting. It was just contacting my water pump, like it was literally touching it, which is not good. And it's not a soft line where it was touching it. It was touching it at the fitting. So it's a 90-degree fitting that comes out. And so that was touching the water pump. So as the engine flexed at all, it would definitely break something. So I spoke with Redneck Ranch or West Texas Off Road, and they said they actually tap it on both sides of the box for the Hemis. So they tap it in 2 locations. I was looking at the other location, and it kind of it would probably work, although my I have my coolant bottle in the way there. And so I could maybe look at melting the plastic and just clearancing it. The 45-degree fitting may work there too, but I think I'm gonna just try to get the first location or the first port to work, because the second port is pretty close to the pulley on the water pump. So I don't want to have those two pieces meet. That would make for a bad day.
Yep.
And so we'll see. I got a little bit more tinkering to do to try to get it to all fit. And then the top port, it just couldn't make the radius bend with a 90-degree fitting. I need to add a 45 there as well, just to get it to sync up properly. So I'm waiting on a few more parts. Hopefully I'll see those sometime this week. If not, who knows? I was trying to source it locally, but they're JIC fittings, so so they're all hydraulic fittings, and they're the fittings that are flared, kind of like a brake line is flared.
Mm.
It uses that same style fitting. And so I called around to a bunch of different places, and nobody had the correct fitting in stock. It turns out that they're actually going away from that style fitting, so nobody's stocking them anymore.
Oh,
Had to order them, and Amazon didn't have anything for me, so I had to pay $12 in shipping for,
Ouch.
$16 in parts, which is annoying.
But at least you're being methodical about making sure, hey, this is not going to come in contact with this. 'Cause
Yeah.
I know and have seen plenty of the guys that are like, oh, that's what's in the box and it should clear, it should be fine. And then they go out and they get out of their driveway and up back in the garage it goes.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, and that's kind of the problem with when you have such a modified vehicle. Everything that's supposed to be bolt on doesn't necessarily become bolt on.
Mhm.
Even if they know that you have a Hemi and they build it that way to begin with, because that was part of the deal when I ordered it, was letting them know that I had the Hemi. It just, it's hard enough to know the tolerances on stock vehicles. I feel like there's enough things that can kind of be in a little bit of a different place from vehicle to vehicle on stock vehicles. Once you throw, an aftermarket motor with another company's mounts, everything kind of just goes to hell. So I was prepared for this to go a little bit longer, but that's okay. And then yesterday, or not yesterday, on Friday, actually part of my new bumper came in. So I got the rear tire carrier in, just the rear tire carrier. Everything else was shipped at the same time, but for some reason, just the tire carrier came today. I just think whoever the delivery driver didn't want to lift the bumper out of the vehicle. If I have to be honest,
blame them.
Is it going freight or is it going like UPS or?
It's coming FedEx, and I don't think it's coming freight.
Oh, interesting.
I don't think it's big enough because they shipped it in 3 different boxes. So I think they do that intentionally so they don't have to go freight if I'm gonna make a guess. So hopefully so everything's supposed to come tomorrow, the rest of it. So I ended up pulling off my rear bumper and getting everything ready. And then I was looking at the install instructions for the new bumper. So my old bumper mounted. So for the JKs, and I have the anti-rock in the rear. The anti-rock uses 2 frame holes that are already drilled and tapped. But a lot of aftermarket bumpers use those 2 same holes. So my old bumper didn't use those holes, so I didn't have to modify the anti-rock. But the new bumper does. So what you end up doing is, and this comes in the instructions and everything for the anti-rock, but they kind of have in the bracket they have a pipe, a tubing welded in, which you put the bushing into, and then put the torsion bar in through the bushing. So they give you one side you can cut and grind it flush on the outboard side, and then that gives you that extra I think it's probably close to just probably like 5/16 is how much you trim off. So that gives you enough room to put the anti-rock on the outside of the new bumper, because obviously you're changing the width. So that's how they reduce the width for you. So I ended up doing that last night, got everything pulled apart, and it's ready to go back in. I painted it up, and now I just need to kind of put it back in. And I'm hoping I can just kind of get everything ready to go, so that way I can just put the new bumper on, and just thread it underneath it, and just maybe have it not all the way put together, but mostly put together, so I can just quickly throw the bolts in there. So as soon as that comes, I'll be pretty happy. Now I need to get a rear tire or a spare tire, since I now have a carrier for it.
Yep. You gonna throw your spare wheel on there just to drive around with a spare wheel?
No, I also need to
No.
modify the bumper.
Dude, throw the wheel on there. It'll look cool.
So the bumper only comes with a 5x5 bolting pattern, and since I have the 8
Oh,
6 by 8 by
yeah.
6 and a half,
Mhm.
I'm going to need to modify it. So, and it's stupid because LOD. So I got an LOD bumper. LOD for the JL bumper makes. I mean, it's all kind of bolt together back there on the tire carrier, and it's really modular, which is really awesome. And for the JL, they make a replacement uh, wheel mount, so you can actually just buy it in 8 by 6.5. And I emailed them and said, "Hey, does that work for the JK? Because it's not listed." And they said, "No, it doesn't work for the JK. And we don't have anything that we can sell you for the JK." It's like, why
Huh.
not? I feel like more people
Yeah.
are heavily modifying JKs at this point than JLs.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a lot more affordable too.
Well, yeah, I mean
Initial investment.
they're in the price range now where people are just, going crazy with the JKs. And they'll get there with the JLs for sure, and it's nice that they already have that option, but I just wish they would do something for the JL. So, I'm
The
looking.
JLs, really?
What's that?
You said JLs.
Oh, you're right. I wish they would do something like that for the JKs. So there's a few companies that make bolting plates, and so it just has a bunch of different bolting patterns. And I'm trying to figure out if I want to go that route and just save a little bit of time from trying to have to fabricate something, or if I want to just fabricate up a bolting plate. I haven't really decided yet, but once I'll either make my own or buy one, and then just cut off the plate that has the bolts for the LOD one, and just weld on the new one, most likely. How about you, Aaron? What have you been up to?
All I've done is some shopping. So during our last podcast, I purchased an entire exhaust system. So I bought headers and um, test pipes and an entire catback for my engine swap. Um, the Titan headers, the OEM headers, are known to crack. It's just a thing. It's not if, but when. So I bought some aftermarket. I think they're JBA brand headers for it, and then a shop makes custom test pipes and custom cats that go in there. Um, so I got those on order. He's a couple weeks. I think he said he's a week and a half out from when I pay. So I'll probably have those in 2 weeks. And then the exhaust system is for the Titan, but he didn't assure me, but he told me what people do is they buy this and all they have to do is shorten a couple of the sections. So hopefully it's that simple. I had already bought an exhaust system for my truck, but it it fits my Frontier, but the uh, the two portions where they would connect to the cats won't come anywhere close to connecting to the Titan exhaust. So I'd have something custom made, and it's in a really tight area in the transmission tunnel area. So I figured it'd be easier to modify the exhaust that's under the frame rather than the exhaust that's in that transmission tunnel. So now I got to find a buyer. I doubt I'll be able to return this other exhaust. So I got to find a buyer for this exhaust that I bought, this cat back. So I got that. If anybody's listening, they want a cat back for their second gen Frontier or Xterra or probably even Pathfinder, um, have I got the exhaust for you? I also paid for my tune and tuning cable. So the guy shipped out whatever tuning cable that I'll need to connect from a PC to the truck, and he is setting me up with the program. And I told him that I haven't been able to get the Titan to run, and I was hoping that maybe he could throw me some sort of stock tune minus the whatever the computer thinks it needs to get past the chip inside the key, because I feel like that might be what failed in the Titan. So if he can get me a tune soon enough before this weekend, I'll try to upload it in the Titan and see if it'll work to fire the truck up. Otherwise, if that doesn't work, I'm gonna check the compression, and if the compression's good, we'll be. I mean, we got to pull the transmission for sure, so we'll be pulling the engine and trans out of the Titan. If the compression's good, we'll keep it bolted to the trans, and that whole thing will go into the Frontier. And if it's not, then I've got some extra work to do. I gotta unbolt and rebolt engine and tranny to make that happen. So that's what's going on. So yeah, this weekend is the make it or break it weekend. Koi's coming up Saturday, and we're going to hit it hard Saturday and Sunday. Um, my plan is to have the engine and tranny out of both the Frontier and the Titan, um, so that I can start the process of putting things back together. The only thing that we're going to be waiting on, besides that exhaust that I mentioned, that's a couple weeks out, is a new wiring harness for the truck. But I can't get a wiring harness until I ship him my wiring harness. So I have to ship him part of the Titan wiring harness and part of the Frontier wiring harness, and he combines them and sends them back. And he says he's a couple weeks out on that too. So it's going to be some serious last minute stuff. I hope that the wiring harness can easily be installed while the engine is in the truck, because I don't want to have to. I'd like to have everything shoved in and then just clip wire harness into place. We'll find out.
If I remember correctly, and I've never pulled an engine, but I watched a donut video, um, and they did where they pulled out an engine, and when they put the harness back in, the engine was already in place, so you
I've
should be
I've
able to do it.
I've done that before also, but it was on a four-cylinder front-wheel drive car rather than a V8 rear-wheel drive vehicle where things tuck up into the
Yeah,
firewall area
yeah,
and things like
gotcha.
that. So it might get hairy back there. We'll see. I mean,
You just
it's
need to use a kid with small hands.
yeah, yeah.
All right,
So
Just
here's where it needs to go, honey.
just a little bit of child labor.
Just
yep.
a little.
So
Just,
if
just
anybody if anybody in my area wants to come out and turn some wrenches this weekend, I would absolutely gladly take some help Saturday and or Sunday. Yeah, it'd be awesome to have some help at the shop here in Yamhill.
I
If you still lived in Washington, I'd be there.
yeah.
I'm really close to Washington.
Eh, not really.
I'll
If
have
I
a
still lived
handful of children. Otherwise, I would be there.
if I still lived in
Nah,
Washington, this would have probably already been done by now because I had a garage that I could have been pulling and doing, whereas
Yeah.
I don't where I live right now. So I'd have been a lot farther along. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. How about you, Ben?
Nothing. Nothing really. So I did get word on my wheels. Those wheels that I said I might be getting. I'm getting them. I called them. They were supposed to ship them last Wednesday to the shop, and I was gonna pick them up on Thursday on my day off, and they weren't there. They never came, and they weren't there on Friday. So
Hmm,
I don't know. I'm gonna call them probably tomorrow, and maybe go pick them up tomorrow since I'm still off tomorrow. I was blessed to with Memorial Day weekend. I was I get Monday off, so I got a nice 4 day weekend. So I've just been working on house
nice.
stuff. So trying to get my garage straightened out and my yard straightened out. And I've got we're leaving for Montana in 2 weeks, so I've just been working on the trailer. I'm talking about wiring some lighting in it. Mm, I ordered my fan for it. Oh, I guess I did do some. I ordered my fan for the trailer. Um, I've just got to
Is
wire it all in.
is that pretty plug and play as far as besides the wiring? Is it
Um,
will it
so
bolt in
so
place?
yeah, so it's the trailer already has a vent, and it's that
Hmm.
14 by 14 trailer size. So all I have to do is unscrew it, screw in the new one, and then put down butyl, and um, it's not caulking. Very similar to it though. So yep. Again,
Nice.
it's gonna be a nice little.
Seal it up good because you live in Washington.
Oh yeah. Well, and we're leaving for Montana on the 19th. So I've got about 2.5 weeks to finish it. We'll see how well that works out.
Bring some
Yeah.
extra sealant on your trip.
It's Montana. It's supposed to be really nice this time of year.
Yeah,
Live
it
on a
probably
flat
will be.
lake. I'm more worried about having the electrical done so I have a fan so I can stay cool in the trailer.
Bring a fire extinguisher.
12 volt. Never mind.
Hey guys, we're looking to reach more listeners. We're going to start reading Apple iTunes reviews on air. If you hear yours, send us a message with your address, and we'll send you an Off-Road Podcast sticker. You can find all of our social media by just searching our name. Now, go hit that subscribe button.
I want to give a quick shout out to this random Twitch listener. So we every week we have one person listening to us on Twitch, like almost the entire show. So pretty excited about that. I don't know who they are. It doesn't tell us on our end who you are, but appreciate you out there in Twitch land.
You're the real hero.
Share us with all your other Twitchers. So listener feedback here. This is from our off-road podcast Facebook fans group. Um, not like 12-volt fans like Ben's talking about for his trailer. So he wrote in and says, just listen to the latest podcast. Wanted to add some info about figuring out capacities and capabilities of these battery inverter systems. The easiest way to calculate power usage for a device or capability of a battery is to convert all figures into watt hours. And that was something Ben and I were kind of chatting back and forth about. He was talking about watt hours. I had mentioned I'd never heard of the watt hours. I'd heard of amp hours. Watt hours are the combination of the volt of the device and the amperage. And then he gives an example in here about 12-volt device draws 1 amp, creates a draw of 12 watt hours. A 120-volt device drawing 0.8 amps creates 96 watt hours. Lithium batteries can be calculated the same way. If it's a 12-volt battery and is rated for 10 amp hours, the capacity is around 120 watt hours. Watt hours ends up being the universal language that isn't dependent on the voltage of the device. As a bonus bit of information, inverters are usually only about 80% efficient. So when you have a blender plugged in drawing 1,000 watt hours, the inverter is pulling roughly 1250 watt hours from the battery. And yeah, that's something we didn't cover last week when we were talking about running an inverter. Like that would be the style that you like clip onto your battery or plugs into your cigarette lighter. So it takes power to convert the power. So there's some inefficiencies there, some waste. He goes on to say if the battery only ends up being if the battery only ends up being 1,000 watt hours like the Jackery 1000, you'll use that blender for less than an hour, about 45 minutes before the battery is completely flat. So appreciate
That's
you writing in, Chris, and giving us some of those details that we didn't get slipped in there all the way.
and shoot us a message, Chris, and we'll shoot you a
Yeah,
sticker.
absolutely. We also want to thank our sponsor, Patriot Patch. Head over to patriotpatch.co and check out their selection of great patches, shirts, cleaning mats, signs, and stickers. You can also join the Patch of the Month Club for $15 and receive a patch, matching sticker, and artist proof each month. Ooh, yeah.
And,
so our June patch of the month here.
It looks
It's
like
danger
something to
close.
build.
So
Aaron-
for those of you listening on the podcast version, it is a drone with some Roman candles, some mortar boxes, and
No,
I
no, I think those are like the Mars missiles or missile defense things, the little tiny whistling missiles that are like the
Oh,
size of
okay.
a cigarette.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then some firecrackers.
And some M80s.
Oh, I didn't see the
And
M80s.
yeah, they're in the very back, under the back two rotors. Yeah. This is a fun patch.
Can you fly that in manual mode?
That's the
I
only way to
feel like
fly
I
it.
want to do this with Aaron's drone now, though.
Eric corrected us. They're called Saturn Missiles. Thank you, Eric, for chiming in on that. I knew they had some sort of planetary name going on.
It's a sweet one, that's for sure. I'm excited to get that one
Yeah.
in the mail.
Yeah, that's a cool patch. It looks like it's going to be a pretty big patch too. Their patches seem to be getting bigger and bigger. They need to make them smaller. I'm running out of space and I'm having to pull them off and put some in boxes.
You just need more patch walls.
I'm actually looking around my room right now thinking about patch wall capabilities.
There's a whole corner right there behind you.
The news is brought to you by PowerTank, the ultimate mobile onboard air system for performance, versatility, and reliability. They are your source for all air-related accessories. Check them out at powertank.com.
We also want to thank our sponsor, Patriot Patch. Head over to Patriot.
Who clicked that one?
I don't know what's going on. I'm not
So,
clicking anything.
I was
the first
lagging really bad. I don't know what's going on.
the first article this week.
Before we get to the news, I got to get a shout out to one of the fellows in our chat here, Andy, who Andy was on the podcast last week. Andy came down with a sickness. He's not saying he's got Rona or anything, but I've been checking in with him the last couple of days to make sure he hasn't died. So I appreciate seeing him on here. Even when he's sick, he's dedicated to our podcast.
So the first article this week is some more leaks from the 2021 Bronco. So a leak shared on Bronco's 6G forum. They've been having a lot of those come out from onto that forum. But it looks like they got a hold of some official documents sharing that was shared with some dealers, and it kind of went into what accessories are going to be available when the Bronco launches. And so there's about 80 that we know about so far. The main ones that this article references is that it talks about Yakima is going to be building the racks as well as like the bike. So like the standard racks, as well as the bicycle, kayak, cargo platform, fishing pole holders, all that type of thing. They have some tube doors that they've listed or that they've sent out, and you can see the photo on the screen currently. What do you got?
Yep.
Aaron, what do you think of those tube doors?
Can you who's running the pictures here? Is that you, Ben?
You want them to make it bigger?
I just want to scroll through the pictures a little farther because there's one that's zoomed in a little more on the tube door.
Okay.
That one there, yeah. Maybe that's this.
I think that's less zoomed in on the tube door.
Yeah, that is less zoomed in. Well, for some reason, I thought the farther out there was more zoomed in. So these tube doors, I believe all three of us agree are trash. I made the comment before the show that these tube doors look like when you go to the county fair and you're waiting in line to get on the tilt-a-whirl, and there's that little gate that keeps you from accessing it. And there's a guy at the gate checking to make sure you're not too short. and that looks like the gate that they let you in and out of. It looks so cheap and cheesy. I don't know what else to say. I mean, at my in-laws, they have a bunk bed, and it's like a tube frame bunk bed, and you can tell they use the absolute thinnest metal to build this bunk bed out of. It's so tinny, and that's exactly what this looks like. It just looks like cheap metal. That's
Yeah,
that's how I feel about that.
to hit on it more is, do you remember when they had those like those D door or the half doors where it had like the little window in it?
I think they were. I thought they were like a full size door, but it just had a window in it. But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And Ford came out, oh, we're not going to do those doors because of safety or some other
Yeah.
concern. But I don't remember. And then they show us these. I'm like, these doors are garbage. Give me the other doors.
Uh huh. I
So
wonder if it wasn't really about safety. I wonder if those other doors just cost too much to manufacture, and so they're
Yeah.
we
like,
we
yeah,
were
we can't really put these
speculating
out there.
we were speculating that it was a safety thing, but I kind of doubt that. So those tube doors for a 4-door are going to run you about 1350. For a 2-door, they're currently looking at 840, which is kind of on the higher end. I feel like I would, if I was looking for tube doors, I would definitely be waiting to see what the aftermarket provides, or maybe even going with half doors.
Yeah.
Uh,
Victory will have some.
Yeah. And so for skid plates, they're looking at 695. For some rock sliders, you're looking at 595. And then the EcoBoost calibration kit has a tuner and an intake, and they did not know what price that was going to be.
So, Andy's got a question here. He says, "How much weight do you think that those actually save?" And Andy, I don't. I mean, I'm sure they save some weight, but it's not about the weight savings. It's a mostly people do these tube doors or half doors, so they can easily lean out of their rig while they're even still buckled in to look at the driving line across the rocks that they're taking and things like that, or for posing in the malls for the pictures and stuff like that. So they don't have the purpose isn't weight reduction as much as it is for higher visibility and things like that.
I feel that people who get tube doors because they're afraid of having no doors. They want that little bit of protection to
Yeah, I'm sure there is some of that. And like if you had kids, I wouldn't want to go doorless on the rear, but completely. I don't know.
Now,
I'm
I like this comment here by Kevin. He says, "I'd rather not have Ford rock sliders if they're built anything like their doors."
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. That's kind of how I feel about all the all the Mopar Jeep stuff. I'd much rather have the aftermarket for the most part.
Well, that's like the skid plates that you get from Toyota. It's tinfoil skid.
Yeah, but those are skid plates that they come stock on the vehicle. I'm assuming that the skid plates that they're going to be selling aftermarket are going to be, real skid plates.
Yeah, but the TRD ones are supposed to be more beefy, and they're only slightly thicker
Right,
aluminum
but
foil.
you're looking at stock stuff, and if they're trying to compete with the Wrangler, they're definitely not going to come out with something that isn't actually going to hold up off road, in my opinion.
No. And I gotta say, my stock tinfoil skid plates have taken an absolute beating and still protect what they're protecting. So, um, yours, I can't say about yours, because
Mine took a hell of a beating, and then they
well,
just started falling off.
you put a dent in your gas tank with yours on, right? Or did you not have one over the gas tank?
No, I put a dent in my gas tank because of it. Yeah.
You got to remember, he folded his skid plate over while snow wheeling.
Well,
Yeah.
I have a folded over skid plate. Like one bolt came, so mine is like square, and one bolt came out of the corner, and it's folded now in half. It's tacoed itself, but
Yeah, but did you
yeah,
do it snow wheeling?
I don't know when I did it, so probably not snow wheeling.
Yeah, my aluminum foil, like Kevin Moore here is saying, is Toyota skids are for tree branches and kicked up pebbles, not rocks.
Well, I don't know if they're for tree branches. We might check with Ben on that. They haven't protected your truck from tree branches.
Well, it protected it from damage. It just directed it towards unplugging a plug.
Yeah. So I guess technically you didn't break anything. It just unplugged the plug. So it did a
Yeah,
good job.
yeah.
Yeah. So the article didn't really mention any other accessories, even though there's at least 80 accessories out there that they're talking about. So
We'll have to wait.
we'll see what when the next leak. I'm doing air quotes here for you guys listening in the audio. When the next leak comes about, it seems like all the leaks happen on this Bronco 6G forum. I feel like maybe Ford is behind this forum, and rather than having official releases, they just leak everything, so it seems more awesome.
More
Oh, that's a
buzz.
way to do it.
Yeah,
Just not honest.
more buzz. Yeah. Well, speaking of buzz, let's talk about our next article here, the F-150 Lightning. Is that a good segue?
That's a
No,
great.
no.
Oh, man, thought it was amazing. Tell us in the comments if you like that segue. So the new F-150 Lightning. Maybe we should give a like a 30-second history of what the Lightning was before what the Lightning is. Do you guys know much about what the Lightning was?
Nope.
Okay, so the Lightning was a street truck. I'm pretty sure they were all two-wheel drive, and it had a hopped up motor, and then they did like a supercharged version, and the whole purpose of it was just to have a fast street truck. They were I wouldn't I'm not sure on this, but I know that like the first I think all the generations were just a single cab. They didn't have like extra cab going on. They didn't have long beds. Um, they were a lighter weight truck so that they didn't weigh too much, and they were all about going as fast as you can on the street. So that was the whole purpose. Um, all motor, all gas, V8s in them, supercharged V8s. So now we're talking about the new 2022 Ford F-150 Lightning, and it's all electric.
Yep.
I think one just drove by.
I couldn't help myself.
That was great. So, depending on the battery size that you get, it either has a 7,700 or up to a 10,000 pound towing capacity, and that's pretty good. It's not as good as the standard F-150, and the payload is 1,800 to 2,000 pounds, which definitely isn't as good as the standard F-150. Um,
Plus, I don't think you'd be towing very far with an electric pickup, at least not yet.
we'll get there. It's in the notes here a little deeper. So they have a frunk on them, and they're calling it the Mega Power Frunk, because inside of the Mega Power Frunk it has four 110-volt receptacles. So receptacle is a fancy word for what normal people call a plug or an outlet. So it's where you plug your hair dryer in, your blender, whatever. Um, and those four receptacles have up to 2.4 kilowatts of power available to them. Also, the Frunk has a capacity of 400 pounds or 400 liters. Um, I'd be curious to see someone put 400 liters of liquid in there. I'm not sure how they, yeah, maybe it's
I
like,
I think they just mean there's 400 liters of space. I doubt you
yeah,
could
I know.
carry 400 liters of liquid.
Well, if you sealed it up with some of that butamin that Ben is using, we close the frunk on that and then drill a hole in the top. I bet you could get 400 liters in there.
I
So,
I I maybe it's kind of like the deck system, and there will be a little drain, and you can just hey, you have an option to fill it full of ice and turn it into a cooler for the weekend in your
So
funk.
considering 1 liter is of water is approximately 2 pounds, you would double the weight capacity.
If you filled it with liquid.
Yes.
It does. The article did mention that they do have a drain in there, but they didn't specifically say that that's what it's for. So we got some some comments here. Andy said, "You heard it right. A grown man just said frunk," and Eric says, "Dude, it's actually called a frunk. I thought Andy made that up. It's even dumber now." So, yep, they've been calling them frunks for quite a while on electric vehicles because they just have space up front to put something, and it's like a trunk. Eric, you were into Volkswagen Beetles way back in the day. They didn't call them frunks on a Volkswagen Beetle. I, I don't know. Uh, so some stats here about the truck. It has 426 to 563 horsepower. Once again, that depends on the size battery you get. What doesn't change with the battery is that all of them have 775 foot-pounds of torque, and that's a lot of torque. Um, yeah, the comments are great here. So maybe the East Coast tried hauling 400 liters of gasoline a few weeks back. Andy says just pull up to the gas station and fill her up, siphon off as you need it. But it's all electric, so I don't think you'll need gas in that one.
Oh,
You
well,
could
if you look at my comment, I say you could just have a diesel generator running in the back. So you just
there you
run,
go.
run
Yeah.
a siphon hose all the way to the front and fuel pump and just pump it right in.
Andy suggests calling it the front upper payload area, FUPA. I guess he doesn't like the Mega Power Frunk name, Mega Power. I mean, how can you not go wrong with Mega Power? Mega Power Frunk. So, getting really off topic with these comments, but I love them. Um, it's Ford is introducing with this truck specifically something called Hitch Assist. Hitch Assist is like parking assist, but this gets you backed up to your trailer hitch without you having to do it. So it just drives the truck backwards so you can drop the hitch on it. I feel like this isn't really necessary with backup cameras, which are now mandated by the government for all new vehicles to have. It is so easy to back up to a hitch with backup camera that I almost every time I do it in the first try. So pretty straightforward. So 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds. That is blazingly fast for a full size truck. Um,
What is it towing?
yeah, it's not. It's just hauling booty for that one. Uh, 230 to 300 mile range, which isn't huge. It's not terrible, but it's not huge. The guesstimate though is that it'll be about 100 miles when you're towing at capacity. So 100-mile range towing capacity is not good at all. So if you imagine, let's say you got a camp trailer or you got a flatbed, you've got some side by sides on it, and you want to go to the dunes are farther than 100 miles away, and I
Probably.
can't I can't charge at the dunes. Um, I'm kind of SOL unless I brought that diesel generator in the back.
Yeah,
So
it'd be good for taking your boat to the lake, the local lake. Uh,
yes,
but that's
yeah.
kind of about it, or crosstown stuff. But
I I I guess I'll get into it a little bit later. But I've got an idea of what you can tow with it that would make sense. So, charging. So if you popped it in your garage and you just plugged it into the regular old outlet in your garage, the 110-volt outlet, you're going to get 3 miles per hour of charge.
that's an interesting
So
statistic.
yeah,
I like the way
three.
they
So
phrase that.
well, I kind of wrote it that way. They called it something different, but I like miles per hour better because that's exactly what it is. You get 3 miles of distance per hour. If you were charging it at 240, which would be like your dryer plug, you get 21 to 30 miles per hour of charge. If you've got a fast charger, you get 54 miles in 10 minutes, which is a lot. But usually that's going to only be if you're empty, because the topping off part, which Ben's talked about in a previous episode, when you're topping off, it slows it way down. You can't force all those electrons or whatever's happening with the black magic. You can't just shove that all in there at the very end. So it'll go from 15% to 80% battery in 41 minutes with a fast charger also. It says the truck is capable of up to 9.6 kilowatts of power. It has 11 outlets, 21 if you include the USB ports. So that means it's got 10 USB ports somewhere.
Wow. That's a lot of USB ports.
It's a whole lot. I mean, I don't know what all you'd be charging with 10 of those. If it was 5 passengers, that's 2 per.
So can you flat tow this? Because maybe this will just be a solar generator.
I don't have an answer to that. We'll have to call 1-800-FORD to find that out.
I think you're missing some numbers there.
The last statistic here on the power is that one of the outlets is a 240 volt outlet. So
Plug that
240, you definitely could hook your dryer up to it, or you could hook your water heater up to. I mean, anything that's 240 you could hook up to it, which is pretty amazing. So back to the towing and what I think this could be used for. If you're a contractor and you pull up to a job site, rather than running a generator, you could just plug all your equipment into this. Most air compressors are 110 volt, but there are some 240 volt air compressors out there. So you've got that capability if you had a bigger one, and then you're towing a little cargo trailer with your tools in it and some plywood and things like that. I could see this being a job site truck, and you get home, you just plug your truck in and charge it back up. And it says in the it says in the article that it can power an average house for 3 days or up to 10 days with power rationing. So 3 days is a lot of power usage for something like that. I mean, if you think about the truck as being a Jackery, the Jackery has a finite amount of power in it. This truck is the same thing. It's just one big battery, and being able to do it, not charge your house, but power your house for up to 3 days that's a pretty big deal. So yeah, they say that there's going to be metal skid plates to protect the batteries and the motors. All the Lightnings will be 4-wheel drive, and they're going to have dedicated off-road modes. They don't mention any off-road packages for them, which, like a lot of other things, will have off-road packages like the Tremor or the FX4. So, and the last part of the article is that they start at 40,000 and they're going to be going over 90,000. I wouldn't be shocked if they're over 100,000 when you option them completely out. So, yeah.
I found a good video of the Ford Lightning. I figured we could share here.
Oh, yes, we definitely could share this one.
775 foot-pounds of torque, probably. It'll do 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds, if our math's right. It's a non-stop thrill ride of pure clean energy that'll give you more smiles to the gallon than an Amsterdam Winters. Oh yeah, and it's a Ford F-150. The all-new F-150 Lightning is probably the quickest truck we've ever built. With what we assume to be the highest torque figures of any F-150 ever. Every F-150 Lightning battery pack is mined from 22,000 pounds of dirt and infused with the soul of the child miner that ripped it from the ground with their bare hands. It's got a frunk. You heard that right. A grown man just said frunk. It's got enough juice to power your whole house for 3 days and charge up your panty waist Prius. Remember Edison and Topsy? This baby can electrocute 2 grown elephants and still have enough left to get your snot-nosed crib goblins to school while towing your new boat. Tesla who? Rivian what? Sorry, we don't speak little girl tea parties. The all-new, all-electric Ford F-150.
That
Thank
that Ford commercial is brought to our buddies over at the Horsepower Hour. Andy made that one up on his spare time. I really hope Ford adopts it, and I hope it makes the circuit.
And sorry about that echo. I forgot that my soundboard plays whatever sounds coming through my computer through the microphone too. So it was sending the video twice. So
Yeah. Well, Ben, did you know that we've got a giveaway going on?
no, we do.
Yes, we
do.
do have a giveaway going on. You want to know what we're giving away?
Yeah, I do. I'm curious. What are we giving away?
Well, the first thing we're giving away is a Warren VR Evo 10S.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. The second thing we're giving away, so I can air up my 40-inch tires. I have a power tank, and we're giving
Yeah,
away a power
I've got those
tank.
too. I've got one of those too. They're awesome.
We're giving away a 10-pound power tank with the hose and a air check and a mount. It's a really good package, a really good starter pack for anybody. The third thing we're giving away is we're giving away a Medical Gear Outfitters Overlander kit. That's the kit that you can mount to your roll bar and it pulls away with Velcro.
Yeah.
We're also giving away, again from Warren, a Warren Bluetooth hub. So if you ever wanted to winch in with your cell phone, that sounds pretty overland. You have that option now. It's definitely a good backup at the very least. It's a very good backup system. If you happen to break or lose your winch cable. But a lot of people are using it for their primary.
You use it for your winch cable?
Or thank you. Your winch controller.
All right. Because
Really
I don't think you're pulling much out.
really strong electrical cable that they used on this one.
Yeah.
Um,
Short though, very short.
I bet you could tie it into a soft shackle. I wouldn't recommend it, but you could probably do it.
Yeah. Yep.
The last thing we're giving away is a $250 Tread Lightly subscription.
Very awesome.
Aaron,
yeah, lots of cool discounts on that. A hoodie, a beanie, and a couple other things. I believe, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, there was some tire discounts and rebates and things like that. I can't remember what else. I
There's
think your name goes. I think your name goes down in the Hall of Fame for Tread Lightly as well.
you do get a discount through Jeep and someone else.
That's
I believe,
right.
as well. So if you've decided, you know what, I'm tired of this disposable hero
clapped out Toyota.
clapped out Toyota, and you want a Jeep, there you go. I was gonna go with the clapped out XJ, but same difference.
Kevin says, I know I would use a Bluetooth controller. I would if they made it for my winch.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're so cool with your platinum winch.
I would have loved to have this as a backup when I lost my winch controller in my center console.
When you lost it in the place it was located. Yeah.
It wasn't where I thought it was.
Yeah. No, I know the feeling. I know where mine's been every time. Unfortunately, it just hasn't been with me every time that I needed it.
Oh, like the snowpocalypse trip where it snowed and you left it on your trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So, how long do they have to enter this giveaway?
You have until July. Well, we say
4th.
July 4th, so I guess maybe we pick a winner while the fireworks are going off on July 4th. So
we are pulling a winner on the 4th. And how can they find that giveaway?
Well, you can go to our show notes and find them in our show notes
Can they?
because we're going to have to put them in the show notes so they can find them there. They can find them on our Facebook page. And I hear that they also might be on our Instagram page. Don't bother with Twitter.
I could post it up on Twitter, but I mean, do people actually use Twitter?
No one, I don't think anybody who follows us is using Twitter to follow us, but I could be wrong.
If you're using Twitter to follow us,
You're sorely
me.
disappointed.
tweet me.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, tweet us.
Tweet us. Let us know that you're following us there.
Yeah, maybe we'll start posting things there.
Yeah. Man.
Go prepared with Warren Industries. They produced the first recreational winch in 1959 and lead the industry with their dedication to quality and reliability. When you dig yourself in deep, make sure you have the right tools to get yourself out. Get Warren equipped and go where others can't. Now, let's get ready for adventure and head into our main topic.
All right, guys, we got 5 minutes
gonna
left
say-
in this episode.
I was going to say, yeah, we're running long again. Yeah, we got actually 3.5 minutes.
Some chatty Cathys around here. Okay, so
There's just so much fun stuff to talk about.
There is. So we're gonna jump back into solar, and I'm gonna jump into connectors, because that's what I have next on my list. So there's if you look at solar panels, like you go to Harbor Freight, you look at theirs, you'll see a connector. You look on Amazon, you'll see a connector. You might have noticed, like on my battery box here, a different type of connector, and you're like, can't we all just get along and have the same connectors? No,
Please.
no.
No.
It's never that easy. So here's like what you'd see like your Harbor Freight. I've seen a couple of them. This is a bullet connector style. You also
Mhm.
see it in like trickle chargers for trucks. Like if you actually, I've got one right here. Um, it's to the well, I dropped it on the so yeah, this is like a to connect it to your battery so you can set up a trickle charger thing here. I've got to get
Yep.
used to what side it is. So yeah, there's that. So I mean, if you've already got some of those connectors, it's nice for that. This here is a Anderson power pole. You might be familiar with those in like farm trucks and all that, but this is a smaller version of those power poles. And it's rated for smaller wires.
I've
Up
never
to
seen I've never seen this small one before. That's kind of cool.
yeah, that's
I do know that they make different size Anderson plugs, obviously for different amperages.
yeah. So that's actually the one I'm running in mine. Um, I don't know if you can see them in here as much. No, can't. But so I'm running the power poles. Aaron Kravik, our buddy, um, showed me those and that he's been running those for his radio equipment. The only thing they're not good for is they're not weather tight.
Mm.
Whereas the MC4 connectors like this, you see a little O-ring, they're a little more weatherproof. So
Those things are sure hard to get apart, or at least the ones I have for my solar setup. Man, you
yeah,
get like
I'm
one
not
of
a huge
those
fan of them.
prongs pushed in, and then when you're trying to get the other one pushed in, the first one pops back out. Yeah, I
And
do. I do like how they're weatherproof, though.
there's a couple other different styles out there. Those are the ones I'm really familiar with and that you'll see more commonly. So I'm not really expanding upon those. There are, um, but there's adapters between all of those. So as you see with this one right here, that's like the 12 volt. I think it's like a 6 millimeter, a 12-volt plug. Kind of like the round little ones you see. Uh,
Yeah,
that's like what my Jacker uses to charge. So I can use that adapter to hook it to my solar panels to directly to my Jackery.
nice.
Yeah. Wiring. That's one of those complex things. It really depends upon the size and draw of the power you're planning on using. Um, because if you're using 14 gauge wire to try and do 40 amps, you're gonna have a bad day. right, Aaron?
Gonna have a bad day. Yep. I wasn't doing that. I had a bad day with some amp. I was running amp wire. I did not know the size of the amp wire. I just knew that it was amp wire, and I threw an inline fuse. Basically, I used amp wire to go from my battery to a Blue Sea fuse block in my footwell that I powered all my stuff off of. And this was before I knew much about electricity, and I just threw a 50 amp fuse, inline fuse in with it, and I was drawing more power than the cord could handle, but not enough to trip the fuse. So it melted my wire, and thankfully didn't catch my truck on fire. So yeah, you
And
need to make sure you size your fuses to your wire, and your wire needs to be sized to what you plan to pull through it.
yeah, and Kevin pointed out here the connector is the same. So the Anderson power poles I shared earlier, they're the same size up to a 30 amp. So you have different little plugs you can put into the back of it when you're wiring it for different wires. So you can keep the same. Yeah.
He mentions voltage drop also is based on how long the wire is at a certain amp draw. And I haven't looked into that for automotive because cars aren't usually 150 feet long. It's something as an electrician that I've had to do to upsize wire for length, but we're dealing with higher voltage. And so it's okay if you're plus or minus 5 volts at the end usually, but you can't be plus or minus 5 volts in a 12-volt system and have 12-volt stuff work. So I'd have to look into that.
Yeah, there's a few graphs online that I've seen for wiring 12-volt stuff, with wire gauges and all that, and they're quite handy to have. So it
And I know there's online calculators as well, like voltage drop calculators
Mhm.
and things like that. So pretty sure you can Google it.
Yeah, it's not much of a problem with 2 feet of wire, like Kevin's saying in here in the
Two,
comments.
actually, it says 2 inches of wire.
2 inches, yeah, yeah. So yeah. So jumping into solar panels, there's from my research on this, there's monocrystalline, polycrystalline, and thin film. Monocrystalline's high efficiency and performance, aesthetics, but they've also got a higher cost. Polycrystalline is lower cost, lower power efficiency and performance. Thin films, portable and lightweight. It's flexible, and it's the lowest efficiency and performance. So
So you've got aesthetics listed in the mono and the thin film. What do they just look nicer than the poly, or
it so like the thin film stuff's really thin, and that's like some of the flexible panels, whereas the nicer glass monocrystalline ones they look nice, they're lighter weight, they're better build quality, but they also cost a butt ton more. So
hmm, okay?
and how they react with the cloud cover, like monocrystalline ones, they're a whole lot more efficient when there's clouds. So the they're better in, like, say, Washington, where we get a lot of cloudy days. They're gonna keep efficiency.
The more expensive ones is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Eric, you can't go cheap on this project.
No, it's better not to go cheap. But there's some relatively affordable things out there. If you wanted just a single solar panel, you can get, like, I got one of the fold out panels kits. It's a 100-watt panel, but it folds up to just like the size of a little briefcase. And it's pretty lightweight. It's something you don't want to like throw around and drop on the ground, but yeah. Again, jumping into your panels, you've got some rigid ones. They've got nice sturdy mounting, but they're bulky. The flexible kind of name says it all. They're slightly more durable. Some places say you can like stand and walk on them, but they're not as good for mounting for airflow, which will shorten up the lifespan because you can't get air under um, you can't get air flow underneath them, and so it'll burn out with heat over time. Um, Folding ones are nice for storage and easy storable, easy to steal, but they're easy to steal. So um, you're charging your stuff, and you're say in a state park. Someone walks by your campsite. Oh, there you go. It's gone.
Yoink.
Uh,
Yeah, that
yoink.
stuff always gets put away if I leave camp.
Yep. Um, Blanket ones. I love the blanket ones. I would love a solar blanket. But they are expensive. We're talking like 2 grand expensive for 100, 200 watt blanket.
Oh
Um, they're
wow.
they pack up nice and small, and they're really lightweight. But again, um, 2 grand versus like a folding one you can get for like $200.
I know this might not be applicable to off-roaders, but um, I've I see about once a month I see people selling um, used panels like rigid panels on Facebook Marketplace, and they've got like a pallet of them. So they must be like in the building industry, and they're retrofitting some building. So they take these all off and put some new ones on, and they're probably too big that you wouldn't want to use them in the off-road world because they're probably like 3 foot by 6 foot. They're pretty big. You could use it as a camp table. Um, but one thing I did want to mention about if you did find something used on a marketplace, just know that they get I from what I understand they get less and less effective over time, and they wear out. So that's the reason why they're taking them off of a building, is because they aren't as efficient anymore, and probably newer stuff is way more efficient anyway, so it makes sense for them to swap them out.
Yeah, especially if they didn't have very great airflow underneath them.
uh yeah, and actually I think we should talk about that. You mentioned flexible ones. They make flexible solar panels that are cut to the exact size of like Jeep hoods, and I think for some Toyota products. I'm not sure if they make them for the Nissans or not. Obviously, they're making them for the more popular vehicles, but they like adhere right to the hood of your vehicle. And so Ben's talking about not having airflow. They don't there's no gap behind them to let them cool down, and then it's also sitting on top of your engine cooking it. So while it might look cool and everything, I'm just not sure how well those will turn out in the long run.
Yeah, I worry on how long those will last too. And like I've looked at them, I'm like, that's really cool. I want one. And then I'm like, oh. And as I'm reading this stuff, learning about that, I'm like, oh, will it really last all that long? And is it more of just a waste of my money, which I'm really good at wasting?
Yeah.
But it ups your Olaf cred.
Oh, you gotta have the street cred for them all, right? And I'm trying to upload a picture of it, and my computer's being stupid slow. So, moving on. Charge controllers. You cannot just take a solar panel and connect it directly to your battery. Bad things would happen, and you need to have a charge controller in between. Solar regulators have additional features such like a low voltage connect. Um, the cool thing with the charge controllers that are out there is they really help you monitor. I've got an app on my phone, and it's like, oh, okay, my battery's 98% full, or I'm charging at this much wattage, which is kind of fun to look at and be like, oh, cool. If you've got like a Jackery or whatnot, they've have a built-in charge controller, so you can take with like a Jackery, you can plug it directly into a solar panel without
Yeah.
consequence. So if you're going that route, it's nice to have that versus if you're trying to wire up solar to your dual battery setup so you can sit in the middle of the desert for a week and run your AC, you're all set to go.
Yeah, those charge controllers though are cheap. They're like 15 to $25 for
You
super
can,
inexpensive ones. Yeah.
yeah, and you can spend a lot more on a nicer one.
Hmm. Yep.
Um, they've got they re-enable charging when the voltage. So they have stuff like they'll stop charging, and then they'll re-enable it when the battery drops below the certain level, so it's charging it efficiently. There's PMW, which pulse width modulation, and MPPT trackers, which is an maximum power point tracker. Their technologies are more electronically sophisticated, um, and they adjust charging rates depending upon the battery's charging, so it allows it better charging. I'm a fan of the MPPTs, and that's like what I
Yeah,
chose for
you know me.
my
You
MPPT.
you down with MPPT? Yeah, you know me.
Yeah, and you also really have to look at your charge controllers and make sure that they are rated for the battery you're using. So we had talked last episode about flooded sealed lithium, and AGM batteries. My solar box setup here. If you look, you see the little blue light and the white writing um, below it. It's got a different color. It's really hard to tell in this blurry picture, but it's got a different color for each different type of battery. So it's set
Hmm.
on blue, which means it's set up for a lithium battery.
Does yours automatically sense what battery it's connected to, or do you have to tell it by
No,
pushing a button?
you have to tell it by pushing a button, which isn't that hard. Yeah, you push.
Kevin in the comments says, don't buy a $9 charge controller for lithium batteries.
Well, yeah, make sure it's rated for lithium. I think
Yep.
mine was like a $30 charge controller, and then I paid some extra for the Bluetooth monitor, and then there's also a battery heat, a battery temperature gauge that sits between those two batteries. Um, so yeah, do, 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 do. Yeah. So like I said, charge controllers also can help manage battery temperature to prevent overheating, which will again shorten your battery life. Some systems also transmit data or log it. So if you have one that has a load on it, so you'll have where you have your output, instead of going off the battery, you have it going through the charge controller. It'll show how much power you're using and log it for you. It's really handy to have if you're trying to figure out how much you're using, and if you need to up your battery sizes, or oh, I'm actually really not using that much, I could drop my battery sizes down a little bit in the future. And the last thing I've got here is inverters, um, because that can be a very big misnomer when you're out shopping and you're like, oh, this inverter's $30, and why is this one $60? It's like literally double the cost for a 100-watt inverter. Like, what's the big difference? Well, you've got pure sine and modified wave. Pure sines or modified waves more for like an old TV, water pumps, are like old appliances that don't need the. I'm brain farting on this. Um, they're not as sensitive equipment. So when you're using it, it's a sensitive equipment. A pure sign's what you want. You
Yeah,
have
I
a chance
I
of
think that's
breaking stuff.
I think
Um,
that's what you're trying to say. Yeah, the the old school stuff, the things that don't have sensitive electronics, yeah, a modified wave is probably just fine. If you wanted to run a corded drill, like you were at a job site and your batteries are dead, you wanted to run a corded drill. There's nothing sensitive in there. It's just an electric motor. Plug it in and send it. But if you want to run your laptop, you want that pure sine.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why you when you're shopping for inverters, they're stupid expensive sometimes for a pure sine one. And you're like, why is this so expensive? And you're like, oh well, I guess it's gonna help protect my computer if I plug it in, or actually, for instance, my cell phone. long time ago when Aaron and I went on a trip in his LMTV, and I had my phone charging the 24-volt system, even though I was hooked into the 12-volt wet side, the way it was charging, I think that's what did my phone in. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like we mentioned earlier, and I think, was it Kevin who brought that up too about our
No, that
listener,
was
Chris.
the listener feedback, Chris. Yeah.
Inverters, so you don't get 1 amp for 1 amp when you use an inverter. You lose out on your power, your efficiency.
Yeah.
So the better the inverter, the more, and like pure sign. Oh yeah, here, Kevin. Inverters are inefficient, so to keep at 5-volt or 12-volt or 5-volt, you get more out of your batteries.
So let's say you brought your cell phone and you had an inverter in your car, and so you could plug your cell phone charger for the house into the inverter. It would not be as efficient to charge your phone as if you just had a car charger that you plug directly into a 12-volt source. So
Correct.
it's better to turn 12 volts into 5 volts than it is to turn 12 volts into 110 volt alternating back into 5 volts DC. So um, if you have any equipment that you can run it off of DC rather than AC, it might be worth your time to get an adapter, because your batteries are going to last longer. You're not going to have that inefficiency, things like that.
Yeah, and transferring and it's gonna save more battery life. Because you think about it, every time you lose when you use a battery full charge to down, it's one of its uses. Granted, a lithium iron phosphate battery that's got 3,000, 2,000 charges on its life. But if you're using it regularly, well, that could be a year, 2 years, 3 years, and your battery's out. And if you spent $500 on a battery, that's gonna suck.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to maximize and optimize the life of your battery, think efficient.
Yeah. And I like what Kevin was saying earlier. He didn't specifically say this, but buy the best that you can afford. Buy what is appropriate for your usage. Um, it'll last you in the long run rather than cheaping out on certain things. So, yeah. Anything else for the tail end of
No,
our solar here?
that was about it. There wasn't a whole lot for what we had left, but there was enough to make it a little bit of an episode here.
All right. Well, thanks to everyone who listens to us weekly, and to you guys who watch us live every week and share in the comments. We really appreciate you guys. Make sure you're sharing us with your friends. Um, Make sure to check out our Facebook group called Off-Road Podcast Fans. If you haven't, go to iTunes and leave us a review. I'm not sure why I'm struggling with the words. Yeah, leave us a review. Doesn't have to be 5-star. We get less than 5 stars. From time to time, it happens, and we're not afraid to share them. And we just appreciate you guys having comments and feedback for us, like the echo we had earlier. So appreciate you guys out there, and God bless America.
Don't forget to visit Patriot Patch and join the Patch of the Month Club. Check out our Gaia affiliate link for up to 40% off. Also, don't forget to head over to Warren and Power Tank to see all of their great gear. We are a proud part of the Firearms Radio Network. Got a question or comment? Send it to us through our webpage at firearmsradio.tv or through our social media channels by searching for Off-Road Podcast. Also, you can listen to us live at overlandradio.com, Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific. When off-road, please remember to have fun, tread lightly, be safe and courteous, and thanks for listening.
And we're out.